Welcome back to another episode of Guardian Angler. I am your host, Billy Burt, and today we were talking about 5 early spring baits. These baits are going to work from right when the ice melts off the water all the way up to just about the pre-spawn season. First bait I want to talk about today is the Lipless Crankbait. Now this is a perfect search bait, and it's something I tie on immediately as the ice has melted off the water. What this bait does is it hits the water, nose dives, and wiggles back and forth all the way to the bottom of the water. A lot of people from there will just swim it straight back into the boat or up to the shore or whatever they're fishing on. But this time of the year, you have to fish it a lot slower. Let this bait sink all the way down to the bottom of the water. It'll fall over, lay sideways on the bottom of the water. Then you're going to pull it up about 6 inches and let it sink back down. Do that all the way back to the boat. It should take you a little bit to get that bait back. Again, you want to fish real slow. These fish are real sluggish still. So these slow-moving baits will be a lot more likely to get bit than a fast-moving bait. Now, my top 3 to pick from would be Jenko's Ripper Knocker, Rattle Traps, or Strike King's Red Eye Shad. Those 3 are some of the best you can find. They're my 3 favorites, and they're amazing. What these baits are supposed to do are mimic dying shad. When that ice has melted off the top of the water, there will already be dead shad. They're already kind of floating right up under the ice. That'll start sinking back down as soon as that ice is melting. And a lot of other shad are going to try to come shallow to get some more oxygen because they need a lot of oxygen to survive. They're not going to get that oxygen, and they're going to start to die and sink down to the bottom of the water. These baits mimic those shad almost perfectly. Now, the second bait I want to talk about are hair jigs. These are jigs very similar to normal ones that you'd find in stores, ones with the plastic skirts that you'd pair with a soft plastic trailer. Except, they're a lot thinner, and they seem to be almost made of a fur tuft, which is what they are. When they're dry, they don't look like much. They just kind of look like balls of fluff with weight on them. But when you add water, that's when they get really incredible. So when you get them wet, they thin out. They get really, really thin in that water. And in that water, those longer tails kind of flap back and forth. You don't really need to put a trailer on them. If anything, I'll put a very, very small chunk trailer that I've chiseled down a little bit on them. Most of the time, I fish them just as they are because they have enough action alone. Now, like I said, this is something a bit smaller than a normal jig because the bass, again, are going to be real sluggish and they're going to be feeding off of smaller objects. And this is something that works great. These kind here, you'll fish just like you would a normal jig, just kind of hopping along the bottom or even real straight in. But there's another kind that I like to throw, which is considered an aspirin head jig head. And it's literally looks like a ball of tuft with an aspirin tied to it. Again, once you add water is when the bait changes a little bit. Pour that right into the box there. Thins out just like the other one does, except this one is a lot bigger. It's got a bigger profile because the head's a lot smaller. Nice thing about this is that it's a very, very similar action to a lipless crankbait. As it drops, it's going to shimmy back and forth, and it's going to drop straight down instead of at a slanted angle like a normal jig head would. Both incredible baits, something not fished very often, so the fish haven't really seen it. So if you get a chance this spring, pick some up and throw them. The third bait I'm going to talk about is something that you're going to want to start using when you start to notice bass are moving into shallow water. What that is minnow-styled imitation baits. I like to go with soft plastic minnow imitations, but you can go with smaller crankbaits. I like to go with the soft plastic because I can fish it slower, and these colder waters, it's going to be really, really key to fish slow. I mean, one of the biggest things I follow in this kind of conditions is when you think you're fishing slow enough, slow down even more. It allows you to fish that slow without getting hung up and keeping your action right, especially with these willow tails. What this bait will do, when it hits the water, it's going to kind of stay in about a 1-foot radius. It's going to slink forward, back, side to side, all the way down. Even with the erratic action, the bait is going to stay in a specific general area, like I said, that 1-foot radius, which is going to keep the bass's interest. Now, I'm going to show you guys what these baits look like when they're rigged up right about now. The fourth bait I'm going to talk about is insect-styled baits. A lot of times, insect-styled baits are more targeted at panfish in the warmer months, but it's something key that can work very well in this cold weather in the shallow areas. Bugs are coming out of their hibernative states, they're getting towards the water, and bass are already feeding off of small minnows, so they're easily going to hit off of a bigger grasshopper, a bigger fly, or cricket when they see one. I like the grasshoppers a lot. I know you don't normally see them a lot in spring, but it's something I've had a lot of luck on in the past. Rebel makes a good one, XPS makes a good one, and that's something I will always continue to throw in the spring. The final bait I'm going to talk about is grubs. Grubs are used a lot, again, in warmer months, but there's something that can be very key in these colder months if you fish them properly. A lot of times, frogs are kind of coming out of their hibernative states. They're not being real active out of the water. They're not really kicking around too much. But if you're throwing these around lily pads, under them, and through weed lines, they're looking like a frog that's just starting to wake up, trying to get out of the bass's way. It's something that works very well, again, when the bass are coming into the shallower areas. I throw a lot of greens, but I also throw this peanut butter and jelly color. It's something that's extremely useful, even though it doesn't necessarily mimic a frog's color. It seems to work very well and catches me fish in both clear and murky water. Right here, we have it rigged on the stupid tube. As you can see, the hook is exposed. It's got weight in the hook itself, so you don't have to worry about adding any extra weight. This way, you're going to have to fish it a little bit faster. So if they're really keying in on slow-moving baits, you're not going to want to throw it rigged this way. Here we have it rigged on the Texas rig, just a standard Texas rig. Fish it any way you want. You can swim it, you can jig it, you can stop and go with it. Whatever way is working the best is the way you're going to want to throw it. You can fish it a lot slower than you can with that stupid tube because, as you can see, that hook point is buried, so you're not going to get as good of a hookup ratio as fishing it on the stupid tube. But when you fish it this way, you can come through cover a lot better. Like you saw earlier in the video, I did want to talk about a few tips other than just the 5 baits. Something that is huge in spring is to get something with a little more action, but you don't want too much action. That's where I find mini skirts that you can fit on crankbaits and soft plastics come in huge help. This is going to add just a little bit of flair and a little bit of extra color that can get fish's attention and hold their attention as well. These little skirts have little openings for both, like you see in the middle, single hooks or treble hooks like you see in the back. This is something that has played a huge role in my springtime fishing and my all the way into spawn fishing even, that I don't talk about too much. Best company I found that makes these is Ziptailz. I'll leave their link in the description below if you want to check them out. But it's something that plays a huge role in spring, and I absolutely love all times of the year. This is what these mini skirts should look like when rigged properly. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below, and I will help you. The final tip I want to leave you guys with is to use minnow scent and flavoring on your early spring baits. I don't know what it is to be able to use a scent made for crappie, but it catches so many bass in the spring. They seem to hold on a lot longer and be a lot more likely to hit your lure than if you use either an anise scent, a garlic scent, coffee scent, craw, or shad. I fish a lot of clear water. You guys will see a lot of that clear water fishing come this summer, but it just seems to work so much better. I've seen so many fish turn away from different scents, but come back for this minnow scent for some strange reason. It could be because they're already feeding on the minnows, so they're already used to the smell or the flavor. So they're going to be more likely to hit it because of that, even though they're still feeding off of shad and crayfish. But maybe it's just because, again, the minnows are something they're targeting. It just seemed to help me a lot, especially in the very cold water. So if you guys ever get a chance to pick some of this stuff up, I definitely would. ProCure makes my favorite scents. It's about the only scent I will throw. So if you guys want to check them out, I'll leave the description down below as long as everything else I talked about in this video. Again, for some strange reason, minnow scent seems to work so much better than any other scent I can find. Thank you guys so much for watching another episode of Guardian Angler. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below. Tell me if you got any questions or if you want to see me talk about any other baits. Next time you see me talk about these baits, you'll probably see me out on the water. Can't wait to see you guys in the next video. So, rip some lips, run some drag, and fill your bag. I'll see you guys around.